Hello guys, and welcome to my pool. Today I wanted to film since I'm awake during the day, get some good sunlight, but also it's nice out and I never get to get in the pool because I work night shift. So let's just combine the two things that I had planned for today into one, and here we go. So before I get started, I'm going to let you know that this is a spoiler alert. We're going to be talking about the characters from Orange is the New Black and how they developed throughout the seasons and how everything ended in season 7. So if you haven't watched it yet, don't watch this video because I'm going to tell you how it ends. So today we're going to start with one of my favorite characters just because she's Italian, Lorna Morello. So Lorna, as you remember, started from the very beginning, and she's always been a little eccentric, you could say, and a little wild, but at the beginning you don't really think anything of it. But you see how she develops through the flashbacks that she has and the reason she's even in prison in the first place, with all the things relating with Christopher. So at the very end of the season, we find out that her baby died in the NICU. This is a really unfortunate case, it's a really unfortunate situation. It's really hard to lose a child, and how she reacts to that is not completely irrational, but it is. But she's doing what she can to preserve herself. She's self-preservation mode. She's completely broken from reality. We'll get into that. So, since she's not a real person, I can say whatever I feel about it. This is all my opinion. You know, I'm not actually diagnosing any real person. So even though I don't have the actual ability to diagnose, she's just a character, so I can say whatever I want. So, let's get into it. So, the flashbacks that was shown in the season 7 of Lorna, where her sister gets engaged and then she ends up accidentally killing them, which that death scene was the weirdest death scene I've ever seen in my life. So, but when they find her in the flashback and she's like walking, she doesn't remember anything, she's got blood all over her, all this mess, and then she does it again and then ends up in the chicken coop and gets tased. Those things to me are like a total break from reality. Like total mental breakdown, a total snap. She saw, and this seemed to be exacerbated by something traumatic. So in her first delusion in the flashback, she, is upset that this person's engaged and she's not, so she doesn't want to go with that guy, whatever. So she's walking and she's angry and she throws a rock at an oncoming car that like flashes at her. It hits the windshield, no big deal, I mean, whatever, but the person veers and hits they hit a big machinery and then they just die. Like, why didn't you hit the brakes? You weren't going that fast. Like, that death scene, the writers need to rethink that one, because that was a horrifically poorly written death scene. Like, they hit the car, you don't even see them come through the windshield, but then when Lorna goes over, they're on the roof, the hood, like, yeah, when did you get there? Because I didn't see you come through the windshield, but whatever. So Lorna has this traumatic thing happen to her. She literally caused their death, and she has a total break from reality, so she's wandering, walks for like 15 miles, and she ends up in the hotel where they're going to have their wedding on the rooftop. And I don't think that's a coincidence, and I'm sure they did it on purpose. But you can tell the way she's acting that she's totally not with it at all. Eventually she, I don't know, comes out of it. They don't show what happens to her after that. And then the whole reason that she's in the jail in the first place is that she has this delusion that Christopher is still going to be her husband. She breaks into their house, she puts on his wife's wedding dress, blah blah blah, gets in the tub. Delusions. These delusions are continuous. And then the final one with Vinny and Sterling, and she is in self-preservation mode, and she makes up lies to fit the narrative that Sterling is fine, and then she makes all those fake Instagrams, and then even though her husband's taking them down, she just keeps making more. And I think that the divorce request from Vinny, like, put her over the edge. I think that was just too much for her with everything else that was going on. The diagnosis that I'm giving her, what I think the writers were trying to portray, is a condition known as a delusional disorder. So this obviously has a lot of broad symptoms and there's many different types, whatever. So in reference to how many different types of delusional disorders there are, the few that I think that fit her, I think she's more of in the mixed category, but the other ones include this Erotomanic. It's where you think a famous person is in love with you, like when you think the weatherman loves you, or like an actor or actress or something. It's weird. Grandiose, you have this inflated sense of worth, you have a lot of money, you have a lot of power, when in reality, you're just the same as everybody else. A jealous one, which is obvious, where you think your partner is not being faithful to you. And the one that I think kind of fits her a little bit is this I keep saying this wrong. Persecutory, whatever. She feels like she's being persecuted. That's the gist of this one. You feel like people are against you. You file a lot of reports, against people. But I feel like she really felt that way with, like, Christopher and anyone who spoke about Sterling. Like, why would you say that to me? Like, why are you attacking me? And things like that. So I think that fits in with her. And then the last one is Somatic, where there's, like, a physical defect or an illness or a medical issue that you feel you have, when in reality there's no evidence of that. If you work in healthcare at all, I'm sure you've dealt with that before. And then the last one is a mixed one, where you have more than one. I feel like she really fits into the one where she's feeling prosecuted, and maybe a little bit of the jealous one with Christopher in the beginning, of how she felt like he, was cheating on her, but reality, he just moved on. They were not together, but lots of things. Whatever. So what causes this delusional disorder in general? It can be genetic. If you have a family history of delusional disorder, you're more likely to also have this. But it also could be biological. Could be like changes in your brain matter, chemical imbalances. Could be caused by drugs or alcohol, and even could be caused by drugs that are prescribed. So it doesn't always have to be illicit drugs. It could be prescribed drugs. And what I think caused Lorna's issues was environmental or psychological. It seems like stress triggers her delusional episodes. So any kind of stress that, is put upon her, like Christopher getting married, what happened to that woman, Sterling dying, very traumatic things. So it makes perfect sense to why those things are what triggered her. And she's shown these behaviors all throughout the show, but this last season was, like, particularly strong. Like, in the beginning, you kind of thought, like, oh, she just really wants to be with him. Like, she just wants to do whatever she can to be with Christopher or whatever. And then you kind of learn more that, like, oh, you did that. Oh, okay. So Sterling's death really just sent her right over the edge. She ends up in the chicken coop. She's, like, holding a chicken. I don't know if she thinks that, like, chickens are baby now. And I know they mentioned in the show that they caught her nursing a chicken, but she didn't have her, like, boob out, so she was just holding a chicken. Whatever. Anyway. The way she's acting probably could have been diagnosed sooner than when she had a full-on break from reality. But the prison system is very overwhelmed, especially in America, because we put people in prison for everything and anything. Too many traffic tickets? Get your ass in prison. So anyway, the issue is that the system is overwhelmed and there's really no way to just catch every single mental disorder, and especially if she's not being violent. The ones that are violent are getting taken care of first because they're a risk to the rest of the population. Makes perfect sense. And so they really leave a lot, though, that's unexplained with her. Like, is she treated? Like, do they... I mean, because you're diagnosed by being evaluated by a doctor. So was she evaluated by a doctor like they did with Red? Was she going to get any like, serious help while in prison? Because the same reasons I listed earlier, the system is overwhelmed. And what happens when she gets out? So when you take medications in prison, prescribed by a doctor, when you're discharged, they give you a 2-week supply. Which I guess is better than nothing, but I'd like any regular person with regular insurance, try to get into a primary doctor within 2 weeks. Primary care, internal medicine, family medicine, whatever you want to call it, that area of medicine needs the most people. There are very few primary doctors in relation to the rest of the specialties because they don't pay as much. And it's tough. It's a tough job. I worked in internal medicine. I had a few different roles before I became a nurse. It's the same things over and over and over and over again. And then you'll have the occasional, like, something interesting. But it's like, oh, your blood pressure's high, eat better. Oh, you didn't eat better. Okay, here's a medication. Oh, it's not working anymore. Okay, here's more. Okay, it's not working anymore. Here's more. It's continually just battling non-compliance and the same trifecta of issues: hypertension, diabetes, and thyroid. It's just the way it is. The issue is that a lot of patients don't want to be compliant. They don't want to change their diet. And I understand that because I don't want to change my diet either, but I just try to eat healthy. Like, I don't eat 800 Oreos in one sitting, even though I would love to. I love Oreos, but you can't just use medication to fix your problems. You're supposed to work at it as well in tandem with medication. So Lorna now has to be released. She gets 2 weeks of the medication that they put her on, antipsychotic or whatever. So she goes and gets that filled, assuming that she has insurance, and it doesn't cost her $1 million, which maybe they help her set up Medicaid before she leaves, but maybe they don't. I don't know. Maybe if she's still married, she can be on her husband's insurance. So I don't know if Vinny has good insurance, but so she has to pay for this medication. Does she have any money? Probably not. Does she have a job yet? Probably not, because she was literally just released. So within the span of 2 weeks, she has to find a job, comply with parole, find a place to live, find a doctor, and get into that doctor, find insurance if she doesn't have any. She got to fill that medication. She got to get into that doctor within 2 weeks. She obviously needs more than just medication. She needs therapy. So she needs to find a therapist within 2 weeks. Sounds pretty impossible, don't you think? All with dealing with, finding a job and finding a house is a lot more important than filling your medication. Eating is a lot more important than filling your medication when you have to choose one or the other. So the system is rigged for these people to fail. As you saw with the way Tasty set up that program for released, new parolees. You work out this budget, you got to pay rent, this, that, everything else, find a job in the first place, and you're left with negative $300. Oh. So I think that this show had a lot of faults where things did not really line up, things didn't make a whole lot of sense. I really wish they developed a little bit more on certain other things before the show ended, but they really did highlight that the system wants you to come back. The system wants you to fuck up and end up back in jail. Because it's rigged to fail. Like, you are gonna, unless you have someone outside to support you, and support you well enough to get you on your feet, what are you gonna do? It's the same way with Tasty. She ended up right back in jail because she had no choice but to go back to selling drugs. And when she's on the phone with Poussey in her flashback, she says, it'd be just better to be in there with you. Yeah, 3 square meals, a shower, clothes, shelter. Sounds a lot better than a tent that Cindy's living in. But I digress. Okay, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. This was nice because, a pool is better than the edge of my spare bedroom. So let me know what you guys think down below, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Bye.